Fingers crossed that's not doing roll for beer. There we go. Are we live? I think we're live. Do. Let's check.
Thank you, everybody.
Come on. Might just be catching up. Go. Yeah. Not streaming to Twitch yet. There we go.
Thank you, everybody.
No, still nothing.
And what is this, you may ask? This is the...
I wonder. Just go into YouTube. Oh, there we go. Slight delay. All right. And beauty. All right. Well, hello, Ken. How's it going? See how fast chat takes to catch up. There we go. See if that pulls. There we go. I can see it on stream. I see a test. Yep, beautiful. I'm trying something a little different tonight. Thank you guys for stopping by. I am giving this a go without a couple of things in chat. Let's see. Yeah, bear with me half a sec. Piss me off. There we are. And yes. All right. I can see everything that I'm looking at. Life is good. How you doing today, guys? I'm just going to see if chat is coming in real time or not. I like it. Beautiful. So, we don't have a regular stream tonight, and I need to stop hearing my friggin' voice in my own ears. One second. Monitor off. There we go. Much better. Much better indeed. We don't have a regular stream tonight because scheduling conflicts and all that jazz. Next week, we're going to be running into our second Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. Yeah, Kafka-esque kind of stream tonight. You are correct, Ken. I'm trying out a couple of different tools that folks had requested, such as when doing a DM chat, I'm going to throw the chat on screen. That should combine them both, so the folks that are watching on YouTube and the folks that are watching on Twitch can see them at the same time, because we are teeny tiny streamers and nobody gives a crap about multi-streaming in that regard. So I don't need to see that massive screen there. There we go. You can go over there, and I'm just going to move some stuff around so I can actually see what you're saying. beautiful. I love it. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do just fine. So, we had some folks that were looking for background information on what everybody was playing as, and I figured I'd pull it back and show some stuff off for what we did. So our general theme for most of the Roll for Wishes games is whimsy, dark body horror, we'll say. Something to that effect. And every year that seems to be what we come up with, and it gets more and more disturbing depending on how much chat interaction that we have. But so I brought these folks in, donating their time, which is amazing. They're all amazing creators in their own right. And I said, I want you to think back to when you were a little kid. I never told them an age. They came up with them all being 7-year-olds on their own on camera and just improv'd it. They actually, you know what? Give me half a sec. There we go. So yeah, they started riffing off of each other as they were getting into character. But their basic premise that they were given is, when you were a little kid, who was your hero? Like, who is the Saturday morning cartoon show hero? And Chris, being born a decade before me, he's like, it's gotta be Lord of the Rings, man. Like, not quite calling out like the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings, but we were riffing off stuff a little bit. So he's Bradagast the Round instead of Radagast the Brown. Scarlet was like, Super Mario Bros was the thing. Can I be a Yoshi? I want to be a Yoshi. So we built a Yoshi. It is, for all intents and purposes, well, we'll get into that. Lydia was leaning really heavily into kind of a Tinkerbell aesthetic, but Tinkerbell like from Hook, not necessarily from the animated version, because she needed to be a badass, like you do. And Sarah leaned more in the direction of Chitara from Thundercats. That was the general gist in her camp. So yeah, Chris optimized hard, which is fairly straightforward for what we're doing. He had actually ended up having to miss the very first session 0 that we did. So the others made theirs together, and then he kind of filled in the gap for what they had. So Scarlet, and all of the artwork, by the way, was done by Lydia, and it's just friggin' great. I am on board with all of these things. I'm gonna get her to do up some something in the same style for me that I can just use either for a character or just off the side of a stream beside my face or something. So yeah, let's look at a blue Yoshi. So character-wise, she didn't start with a chromatic dragonborn. She started with an air genasi because she wanted to be able to float the way that Yoshi kicks their legs to not die. And then we started doling out magic items and stuff. And normally when I make these, level 5 is the appropriate platform for Roll for Wishes streams, because you're a high enough level that you have access to options should you choose to take them. For example, being a level 5 wizard, you have access to counterspell and things like that. If you multi-class, you don't, but you might gain other benefits. And everybody starts with 2 uncommon magic items, anything that they possibly want. And the premise behind that is you could completely dump your strength and take Gauntlets of Ogre Power and then completely rework your stats around, which generally a good time in and of itself. But what we ended up going with here is she's like, how do I blue Yoshi? What are we doing here? And the Dragonborn seemed, this was an afterthought more than anything else. It's not grabbing things with the tongue was one. Originally, we started off with a bugbear. That is how Tonk was made. She's like, I could be a bugbear. I could have really long limbs and grab things with my tongue. And it's like, yeah, but it's only on your turn and for attacking and stuff like that. Rules as written, which we try and stick to the majority of the time. But they, that gets solved readily with something like Mage Hand, right? So as we're going through the spell selection, it's like, say the things that you're thinking to do, and let's give you the ability to do them. Eating a shell and blowing out a bunch of fireball, you're gonna take fireball. It's a thing. You want a bunch of different colored Yoshis running around, that's gonna be mirror image. The Yoshi invisibility was just kind of a cool idea. And because Yoshi is ultimately a support character, having Fey Touched for Bless and Misty Step seemed like the appropriate maneuver. Because she could already take Silvery Barbs for herself. So, never ended up casting Mage Armor the entire time through. Maybe she did and took it off on some of the other fights, but there were very few, because I watched the stream back at 2 times speed after everything was said and done, kind of mining for clips and just like taking notes on where things went. I actually had to cut a whole section out of it just because it took a little bit too long. That whole fighting the Cowardly Lion at the same time that they fought Dorothy was not supposed to happen that way. That was going to be a whole other map, whole other fight that GM of Revan made for us. So, but yeah, Blue Yoshi in a nutshell. Nothing weird, nothing reskinned. They took winged boots because they wanted to do the little like Yoshi hover fly, get up there kind of thing, and an arcane grimoire. Scarlet had mentioned that she wasn't really hadn't really done wizard much before. She DMs more than anything else, and the grimoire it's just good value for what it is for an uncommon magic item. Albrun in our 5e stream uses one as well. They are just wizard chef kiss. Mostly standard stuff. I always make sure that session 0 is really important, because I need to know the capabilities of the players based on what's on their sheet to have a rough idea of what to highlight. So as we're going through and we make our characters, I never prep an adventure in advance. The adventure is always made and scaled around what the player's choices were in character creation. So we went through, and she's like, I don't even know what wizard spells to take in this regard. And it's like, well, Find Familiar is always good. You're always going to want Shield. You're always going to want XYZ. She took a counterspell because having counterspell is a wizard's job. Just flat out. And in doing so, now we need encounters that allow her to use counterspell, is how I look at it. Not every encounter, but the wizard needs to clutch save the day in some regard. So spellcasters, that becomes something first up on the list. It's interesting, actually. The first time that she used counterspell on stream, she shouldn't have been able to, because she used her reaction already that turn for a shield to not get clobberin timed. But yeah, Blue Yoshi, I would totally spec this the same way for anybody else. 7-year-old kid playing their hero. Treant Monk, our resident optimizer. Chris is one of the few people that I'm aware of that knows 5e better than me. Reasonably so. He makes his living doing it. I do it mostly for fun, but having some talks with him the last couple of months have been really cool, just in working through a lot of this stuff. He played a Circle of the Dreams Druid, which is by no means the most powerful subclass for it by any stretch, but playing to the strengths of the rest of the group, it's pretty good. Went a variant human because he was playing off the whole I'm going to be Radagast for all intents and purposes. One sec here. I should mute you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to hear Discord. Doot. He was kind of playing to the rest of the team, which good old team player. I really loved how he was very much the boy in the group for all of it, where it's like I'm a go kill monsters now. This place is no fun. I'm gonna play with my action figures. It made everything really um, just relaxed all the way through. Um, Circle of Dreams Druid, you get a lot of mileage out of it for being um, at a lower level. In one of our regular games, we got an NPC named Mr. Peaches that is a Mark of Passage human, same as Agnes, that is also a Circle of Dreams, built on the premise that there should be a kind of druid that can use teleport and teleportation circles and stuff, and that's how you merge those together and bake that particular kind of cake. But just essentially built in there for at-range healing. The Balm of the Summer Court gets around the whole needing healing word and bonus action spells, preventing primary action spells and stuff like that. Because with Balm, you can heal for arguably about what you can for healing word, and still be able to, control stuff and dump spells with your action, or double up healing on a turn if you need to. Chris ended up taking Serpent Scale Armor and a Sentinel Shield, just for the pure mechanical effects. Serpent Scale Armor is bullshit and broken for all intents and purposes as a 5e item. I've used it in the past with, if everybody remembers Tracy, she played Gwen on our very first live stream. I made a rogue that was built entirely around having this item, and it is entirely worth taking medium armor proficiency on a rogue to be able to get scale mail with your full dex bonus and no disadvantage on dex checks for an uncommon item. This is bullshit right here. If you're a rogue and you ever have the opportunity to choose an item to start your game with, this is the thing that you choose, because you just wear it for the rest of your life. Rogues don't get AC this high without having some ungodly shenanigans and multiple items, and it doesn't require attunement. Pro tip, doesn't require attunement. But yeah, Chris did your standard. I'm a variant human. Resilient Constitution is a feat. Lucky and Alert just for passive value. He did a really good job overall with melding with the group. You can tell in here. So with Roll20, changing out your spells can be a little tedious sometimes. So generally, what I end up doing is I'll copy every single spell that I could possibly prepare every morning onto the list, and I'll just mark it off in red with what the number of preparations that we made today. Extra healing for Wither and Bloom. This is not a good healing spell, but when you're the only one that can really heal, it's an option. Spike Growth he put to good use. Sleet Storm in the last fight he didn't end up using at all. Call Lightning, there's a clip on our Discord and Twitter of him doing like 190 points of damage with Call Lightning because he dumped every d6 that we had in the donation pool into it. I think chat had commented that Chris spent $315 worth of Make-A-Wish donations on a single spell for damage to roast a Tin Man that had been turned into a potted plant. Like you do. So, but yeah, again, in his case, because I know the kind of druid tactic he's going to want to play, I wanted to make sure that we had wide open areas, lots of ground space, that he's going to be able to make good use out of things like Spike Growth, where Scarlet could have made good use out of things like Web, at the end of the day, like, um, he picked a lot of wide range spells for what he was doing, because your options are somewhat limited with the druid spell list. But yeah, I just wanted to be able to showcase that. So in this case, this is where that fight in the cornfield came up against the Scarecrow slash the Emerald King, or yeah, the Emerald King. Where did I put that? There he is. Yeah. So that was the reason for having a long spaced out thing. The other thing too is that between having a blue Yoshi with winged boots and a fairy creature, um, being able to manipulate the z-axis on the map is really, really important. So when we were sitting down and designing these out, and kind of laying out what we wanted to do with this, I wonder if I can just move some of that over. Yeah, I want that to not be so crappy. There we go. That'll do. Yeah, come on, do the thing. Throw the lever. Beautiful. I like it. I wanted to make sure that we were using the z-axis with it. So each of these points here were intended to be like a 60-foot tall telephone pole or a maypole. And I'd originally constructed it with like electricity going through, but that kind of iconography didn't really take off until like the Grimm Fairy Tales versions. So I wanting to be able to show those strengths and have them something to do and showcase that, hey, I'm flying, this is cool. I need baddies that are moving from one location to another constantly. The worst thing with combats is when you have something with a lot of hit points that just stands there and it's like, okay, and you've done 14, and it's still up, and it's still up, and it's still up. And sometimes the fights devolve into that sort of thing, but never from the very beginning. So a big thing with this sort of fight was just trying to highlight a lot of those abilities, which kind of brings us into Taffy Twinkle, Lydia's character. This was our Tinkerbell motif sort of deal. This I wasn't quite sure about because Lydia was a little bit later than everybody else coming up with a concept for it. She knew she wanted to be a ranger and absolutely wanted to be a fairy. And if you see any of her content anywhere, you know that just instinctively. It's her motif. It's what she does. So, again, it plays off the wanting to make sure that we could highlight the flying. This was kind of her first foray into using Roll20 for stuff too, which I wanted to make sure it was a reasonably pleasant experience, being, Roll20 ambassadors and all that jazz. Item selection for her was very, very straightforward, with a cloak of protection and a +1 hand crossbow. And because passive abilities just do better most of the time than situational ones when it comes to magical items, you're always going to shoot something. You're a ranger, always going to shoot. But yeah, interesting character choice here. She ended up going with favorite enemy instead of favorite foe, which is like, this is a garbage ability at the best of times that doesn't come up, and she never used it. But the thing that replaces it is already replaced in her case as a monster hunter with the Slayer's Prey ability, which gives, as a bonus action, you designate a target and it'll take an extra d6. So she's already got this, and she's already got Hunter's Mark. She could have also had Favored Foe on top of that as well, but that's 3 full turns to set up to be able to, start doing your stuff. Which, don't need it. It's not useful at that point. But yeah, a big thing with this one is wanting to highlight that the ability of flight and the ability to know monsters, right? And the way that the stream played out, it was her like telling herself, convincing herself that she was the best monster hunter ever, and then as she gained that confidence as a character, revealing things as it goes. There's an ability that allows her to know with an action like things that you can see, what their immunities and resistances and vulnerabilities are, and all that jazz. But it came up more in a narrative sense. Like, this is a dope ability that shouldn't take an action. I don't like deviating from raw too much because it's not terribly inclusive for players if they're coming in and they're seeing, like, they're learning mechanics wrong by watching people that are homebrewing, and then they go to take it to a table and they don't understand the ability that they're trying to do at that table, and it can be really really distancing and really alienating when you're like, I don't know how sneak attack works because they did it wrong on critical rolls so many times. And that's, yeah, I digress. But yeah, that was Taffy in a nutshell. So using those height advantages and a lot of like difficult terrain. I knew Chris was going to be looking into something like spike growth with all of this corn around. Plant growth as well. It's just ripe for it. And having flying players just adds to that. Which leads us over to the lake where the thing happened, where he just destroyed everything forever. You'll notice that there's a bunch of different tokens that are kicking around on places on the GM layer, because regular playing by the rules as a player abilities are fine, but you really got to tweak to make it challenging in this regard. So what I ended up doing is like our nickel-plated emperor, because if you've read anything of the Wizard of Oz, there are about 40 books or so leading up to this. I went with a Lord of Blades as a base template from Eberron. It's a CR 18. Obviously, they're level 5. They're not going to be taking on a CR 18 the way that they normally could. So I scaled back a bunch of the damage down to like, if he hits and does maximum damage, they should almost die in one hit for a lot of these guys. At maximum damage. So this is scaled down. This is scaled down because the threat needs to seem real. A huge sized mechanical automaton that's swinging, a 10 or a 12-foot sword through your body, that narratively should tell you that it's gonna hurt. And your imaginary understanding of what hit points are should be skewed at that point. The charge abilities that he had were the narrative design that we went for with this is that in the original Wizard of Oz, like the Scarecrow got a brain and the Tin Man got a heart and the Cowardly Lion got some courage. And based on the tenets that each of their parents had that were stolen, the Scarecrow gained some courage, or gained some heart. And in that, I treated that as I have an ally. I have a friend that's helping me in that pumpkin head that was strapped to the back. So I have an ability that your friends cover for your weaknesses. So the Scarecrow having extra heart or having an ally, the ally's job was to cover for that fire weakness, essentially. In this case, with the nickel-plated Emperor, because when the Tin Man becomes the Emperor of Winky, he starts plating himself with nickel so he won't rust. He had gained a brain in this case. So what do you get when you have high intelligence in Dungeons and Dragons? You get access to spells. So summon construct, freedom of movement, fly, haste, dispel. I almost went with a counter spell here, but and if Chris was playing the wizard, I would have taken counter spell. but given that it was Scarlet's first time playing as a wizard, I didn't want to wizard battle on her, right? Like, be kind to each other kind of deal. But dispel magic, total fair game. Heat metal didn't come up at all because none of them were wearing metal armor, and most of them were fighting with literal sticks. See invisibility, like most of these are just like a standard fare. Legendary actions was like dashing in and making one attack. You saw me do that earlier. We had that built in with the charge ability as well. Dumping a cantrip, making an attack. Nobody really got close to him for making too many attacks. Aside from Chris coming in and being like, YOLO, fuck it. That was a good time. But yeah, he very, very simple design. I wanted him to be able to I wanted to illustrate how the Tin Man loved a munchkin in the books, and it was their relationship that led him to be changed forever, and then trying to change back, and a whole bunch of like baby mama drama, so to speak. So I wanted that reflected in the battle map with all of these stumped carvings and that sort of thing. And the Kingdom of Winky, like, they loved the Tin Man in the books, and it makes sense that some of them would have either listened to him and been under his influence to try some of these things, or just fell to his power. As we saw in the fight, there's kind of a puppeteering sort of thing that I tied to a charisma saving throw, where I wanted to introduce the idea of you're not necessarily in control of your own actions, because these are automatons, and I wanted to express that to the characters. So with the Tin Man, while he was standing on a big circle in the middle here, anything that he could mark a target, and with a charisma saving throw, and for the next 2 turns, I roughly laid out, as long as he's standing on that stone, whatever movement he makes, you make. Very like shadow binding Naruto sort of deal. And then his minions have these. I based them on vine golems. These little guys right here. I wanted it so when one of them hits somebody, they'd have to make a strength save. Otherwise, the vines would like force them to move their body and do a thing. And we saw that a little bit with like fighting each other, puppeting around. One got into Chris's unconscious body and started using it to move, or Treant Monk's body and started using it to attack the other players. And that it's just good fun because it changes problems. Nothing that they were having thrown at them was something that they didn't have the tools to problem solve, without necessarily relying on chat being specific. It's just that their numbers needed to be bigger, and they needed a statistical advantage to not die. And that's exactly what the D20 and D6 pools do. It's especially combined with the long rest and short rest tokens that we put in there. It gives you everything that you need to not immediately eat it. But yeah, it seemed like a pretty good time overall. I'm just going to double check on YouTube quick and make sure that this is perfect. I like it. There we go. The whole dual streaming thing is still a little challenging. There's a lot to keep track of, and OBS doesn't have a good overlay on viewers in each. So, actually, I wonder if that's something that I can fix in... Yes. I think that might be something that I can fix with my Steam Deck. There we go. All right, let's see. Yes, yes, it is. I can now see the number of folks that are in YouTube and the number of folks that are in Twitch on my stream deck. I like it. I don't like that that's where it's putting that, though. Come on. Show me something better. Beautiful. Okay. Much better. So, like I said, I wanted to highlight what they were able to do and give them a fight. Make it so the audience had to participate no matter what. Hey, math guy Dave, how's your night going? You are a buddy of Chris's, if I recall right. You had donated a couple of bucks to make sure that he didn't immediately eat shit and die. Thank you, by the way, for your donations. It was very appreciated. We ended up raising, I want to say it's $2,400 now. I'd have to go and look at the Tiltify quick. Sorry, 2,300 for us, and then total for Roll for Wishes since we started it at the beginning of the month. We've raised just over $24,109. So, but yeah, if you're just jumping in, we're just going through each of the characters and going through the mechanical things that we put in for the fights and how everything broke down and all that jazz. Oh yeah. We I might be doing something with Extra Life actually shortly. There's an ongoing thing I'm signing up for with Roll20. So nice. If you want to plug anything, feel free to dump a link into the chat. I think it should let you. If not, I'm on the Treant Monk Discord. If you share it over, I'll share it with our community and stuff. So, yeah. So in this case, I wanted to make sure that if, something happened, that each of these areas, and it's very much on rails, needs to take up about an hour and a half, give or take. So the fight needs to either be able to expand or contract based on how chat is interacting. And in this case, he's got some summoning spells that would have taken a 4th level spell slot. I was going to give him one of these guys over here. Ah, beautiful. Yeah. Sounds good, man. I was going to give him one of these, what are they called? Vine Drakes. It in and of itself is a CR7 and a good challenge for 4 level 5 characters, especially considering it's not able to fly. This would have been a good solid bet for what they were going up against. But, wild magic, potted plants, it is what it is. It makes for an exceptional sort of clip. But, yeah. The general intention with all of these was that we were going to have 3 barriers around the Emerald City. They get in, they vanquish the Scarecrow plus a heart, the Tin Man plus a brain, and then in the chasm, we had the Cowardly Lion, who was double brave because had taken bravery from one of the parents. In the books, the Cowardly Lion was always there with a character called Hungry Tiger. And Hungry Tiger was this, in the books, Hungry Tiger was a hungry tiger. But I wanted to make it so we kind of played a little bit on the courage and heart aspect of this as well, even though that wasn't one of the doodads. So what we ended up doing with this is both of these guys, and I'll just throw them over here. There we go. So Cowardly Lion or Clockwork Kalida. The Kalidas were the lion people in the Wizard of Oz. Originally, I had built him up to have kind of a chimeric appearance 4 legs, higher movement speed, that sort of thing. But as we were kind of playing around a little bit, the encounter, I wanted to again highlight. You got a bunch of folks flying. You got different environmental impacts. Like Treant Monk was going to be jumping around using spike growth to good effect, and this is a map that once you lay down spike growth in something, or plant growth, movement becomes an issue. So we went with these abilities like lion pouncing, that sort of thing. Depending on where the fight was going, we're also going to have what are they here? A lion drake as a part of the fight. Also a CR7. It's a big bag of flying hit points that allows you to paralyze people. The damage output is not great. Even 4 level 5s would have murdered this thing entirely. But given that they took as long as they did at the very beginning, we never actually had time for any of this. So what was originally planned as 3 fights became 2 fights and then the Emerald City. So in the throne room, it was never originally going to be these guys. It fit thematically because the Cowardly Lion in all of the Oz series becomes Dorothy's protector, guardian. So having him front and center helping her out absolutely made sense. It was originally going to be a bunch of reskinned flying monkeys because, flying monkeys. It was reasonably clutch using wish spells that I didn't know that they were going to have or have access to at all, because who rolls the luck blade? Honestly, who rolls the luck blade? They were going to be fighting these fellas right here off the hop while she stayed in her ruby barrier. And these are just it's weird that flying monkeys don't have feathers. So the artist that we were working with, Abed Rizvi, just kind of sketched some stuff out. He does photorealistic stuff. So we took a Trimony, I think it is. Yeah, it was a Trimony. Basically this giant hammer-headed flying monstrosity from the Tome of Beasts, and just kind of changed it up so they slammed into you with their big monkey bellhop hats, that sort of thing. And yeah, each of these flying monkeys is a CR8. So 2 of them against the party to start. They got a lot of different damage resistances with basically everything that the party can throw at them. So the whole purpose of this fight against these 2 guys was to drain their pools. They had a lot of dice to use on a lot of this stuff. And that always seemed to be the case in the last couple of years. You get to this point and they've just accumulated a plethora of resources. So the purpose behind these, like I said, they wear them down, and then you get to the Dorothy fight. And I don't think, so the Gale Queen was never intended to be a fight, like in her regular form. This always was intended to have a barrier come up. I described it as Wall of Force, and once that word came out, or that statement came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh shit, no, because they have wish and they can get rid of that. Which is, it is what it is. I stand by my statements and I will improvise as I go. But she was always intended to be this, like, bring all the flying monkeys in and just ruin everybody's day, giant meat monstrosity. Because it's, what is a Make-A-Wish stream without a little body horror, you know? The intention with these guys, these sentinels that we had, I had one of them in each of the maps that I wanted to use, because the stat blocks for these guys are really, really cool. And we had a reward in there called Holding Out for a Hero. And the idea was for, I think it was $150. I can't remember. Somebody donated it at the very end. That the soul of one of the parents that had already been removed from those emblems that were trapping them and binding them to the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, would escape those glass tubes and appear quickly and help them out for the remainder of the fight before being freed. Obviously, that wasn't going to work before they had defeated anything, so I was just going to kind of push it up until the right moment and put it in my back pocket until he needed it. These guys are super sweet, lawful good, large constructs, magic resistance. This immutable form ability is what made the enlarge reduce fail the majority of the time for folks. Bear with me here. Yes. The idea behind like deflecting spells, making they do okay damage. That's not their primary function. But they can deal a bunch of psychic damage and frighten things, and just like they're an excellent support sentinel, we'll say. This made really good thematic sense for being a representation for parents coming in and just being like the knight in shining armor trying to help out. But yeah, the Scylla of Oz. I always really loved the Scyllas in Pathfinder. The large multi-headed wolf siren-like designs were just really cool. And the stat block for this actually came through because I'm like, anytime I'm designing a bad guy, I'll sit down and I'll say, all right, what do I need it to do cinematically? What should happen? Well, in this case, let's look at what they drew out. We've got a big amalgam of monkeys coming together, so I want to make sure I describe that narratively as it comes in. What should you think that thing's going to be able to do? It should have a bunch of horrific attacks that come out of it. They should be able to attack at a pretty large range. So she's got a pretty sizable range for stuff. I did not reflect that in her character sheet itself, but her intention is a 15-foot range. This character is actually a forest emperor before being respect. So these guys, also from Tome of Beasts, they are these child of Yggdrasil, I think Andalites from Animorphs, as maybe a deep cut. If something went horrendously wrong with Axe in Animorphs, it'd probably look like this. That's where that death rattle came from with the snake tail, and just having a boatload of weird abilities. Are reasonably high AC, high saving throws where they count, good damage immunities. I stack the damage immunities between these and the monkeys when they all merge together because it makes sense. And then I added in a self heal for a big bad guy. Final Fantasy bosses kind of influence that a little bit because they should be more robust, and I don't want them to be more robust by just giving them a higher AC and more hit points. So when I ported this in, it's any of their attacks do slashing damage and acid damage. Whatever they did in acid damage, she healed back until the party started putting stop to that. So, but yeah, that's essentially what we put together for baddies. I tried to stick to the lore as much as I possibly could. The general gist is that, you know, the kids want to save their parents. um, these are always on rails on purpose, because you only get so much time to sit down and run them through, like point A to point B, have a fight. Point A to point B, have a fight. And that was a little challenging too, because I know Sarah and Scarlett especially focus much more on narrative games than they do mechanical games, um, which I enjoy like the best of them. But the majority of the time, the narration isn't what drives donations for the kind of stuff that we're doing. Tension does. And tension that can be solved with more dice is generally how we design these things out. And uh, I informed all of them ahead of time, like this is going to be a lot of fighting. So, and they all showed up and had a friggin' great time. I think the hardest part of the whole thing was just not swearing for 9 hours. It was probably the worst of it all. No, I take that back. The worst thing of all was that these are the comfiest headphones on the planet. Best mixing earphones I've ever found. But when I have to turn them like this, they squish my ears so I can wear a top hat for 9 hours straight, because I would be no Wizard of Oz without a top hat. So that was the worst part of all of this. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we were looking to do. We had some really cool effects come through. One of my favorite bands, I Fight Dragon, made a kind of a half concept album around Oz. So all of the music that was playing in the breaks with lyrics was from them, and then the other stuff was by myself and a fella named Tom Lincoln. I generally do a lot of the themes and ambiences for our stream, and then Tom's been doing a lot of work on, like, I need a magical girl theme version of what we have, and I have 2 small children and no time. And he's like, fucking done. I will take a crack at it. Let's do this. So his help has been instrumental in making sure that I get enough time to spend with my wife lately. What do we have? Glimpse behind the curtain on some of this stuff. So on putting all of these sorts of things together. We use VDO for everything spliced into OBS. We balance all the levels, background music and stuff. Listening back, the background music I should have tweaked a little bit. I didn't hear anything from the cast or from chat on it being too low or too high or anything like that. So I just left it and hoped for the best. We do introductions. We'll take breaks every 2 hours and a longer one in the middle. That seems to work pretty good for us if you're running something like this. Sound checking everybody separately, making sure that we set compressors and expanders and noise gate everybody. The worst thing about a Dungeons and Dragons stream is when one person is significantly louder than the others, or somebody is as quiet as a mouse and you can't hear anything that they're saying, or somebody's in an echoey room and you don't care what they're saying because all you can hear is like the banging of their washing machine. So we dial all that out before we ever go live. The fundraising milestones that we had that were listed in here. So at $150, they got an uncommon magic item. At $300, they got a short rest token that they could burn as an action. And it basically, time stop, everybody gets a short rest, keep going. And anything that you would get back or had the ability to get back on a short rest, like Monk Key, for instance, doesn't come back on a short rest, comes back with meditation during a short rest. But we hand wave that kind of stuff. Getting a rare item at $500. Most of these are a little piddly. After the $1,500 mark, I think next year we'll put in some more incremental ones, because they could have had a lot more stuff come through here. I was just kind of spitballing it from last year. This $5,000 milestone was put in here with the understanding that we would probably never make that. Given the size of our stream, even though we were hyping it up and going to cons and like getting everybody ready for the event. I was betting that if this was going to happen, it was going to be because of trolls, and I still have it. It's here somewhere. It's right here, and it has eluded me once again. So one of these days, maybe we'll do a extra life for a Child's Play one coming up, and I'll hurt myself for the internet to raise money. These long rest and short rest abilities are super clutch, especially when we're dealing with stuff that is, you know, CR 15s and 18s against level 5 characters. And again, I count myself very fortunate to have some folks that really understand an optimized rule system and rule set for that. I played with a guy with squeaky mic. Oh yeah, mic stuff matters a lot. I'm an audiophile more than anything else. I make some music. It's a thing. It is one of those production things on our streams that I don't know if David's in the audience tonight or not on chat, but it probably pisses everybody off to no end how much I harp on like, oh, your mic is a little squeaky. We need to fix that. Because if I wouldn't watch our stream because the sound is off, there's a problem. But yeah, no, it's not a hard thing to fix. It takes 10 minutes of due diligence before you go live, right? We played on Roll20 long before we ever streamed, and trying to navigate Roll20 being or using their audio and video setup way back in the day, that was always a nightmare too. I really like using VDO because it's a raw signal that nothing is dicking with, that I can dump in OBS and mix individually. Having a compressor on everybody makes everything easier. Having an expander on everybody makes things easier. I don't want to hear the squeak of your chair every time you move. I want the expander to take care of that. I don't want to hear your mouse clicks when we're playing. It can all be very distracting, especially because we use ambient music and stuff like that. Actually, I wonder for these, chat, tell me if you can hear this. Tell me if you can hear this coming through. Here's some ambient music going. No. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go and add a thing here quick. Audio output capture. How about now? Lapping waves. People trudging through the woods. There we go. I might actually use that for later for stream beats as I talk about stuff, because ambient stuff is always nice. Beautiful. I like it. But yeah, that was the general gist of what we had going on, what they signed up for. I'm looking forward to the next time Chris comes back to Calgary, sitting down, and I owe that man many beers. It'll be a good time. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, our mechanical considerations for running these kind of things. I generally will always stick to rules as written, and as confirmed on sage advice and stuff like that. for as often as they change. Half a sec. Oh, you're being stupid. Come on. Come on. Damn you, Roll20. Give me what I need. There we go. Because, again, it can be a little alienating for a new player coming in to be like, oh, I see a character doing a thing and I don't necessarily know what they're doing because we've homebrewed a bunch of different things in for Rule of Cool and stuff like that. So generally what we'll do is we'll stick to rules as written for the ease of the audience. It's a little bit of a dopamine hit too for folks when they're like, they see a character do a thing or have an item that they're like, oh, it's a bag with a big smiling face on it. I know what that is. I have that. I'm invested. I care more. And anybody who's ever gotten into a really popular actual play, call it Critical Role or whatever, you have a favorite character. And it's generally the one that fits best with the aesthetic that you use or that is similar enough to something that you've played before. I'm a wizard character. I play wizards all the time. That's my favorite class. I have a favorite subclass for everything else, and I play a lot of different things. But when given the chance, I will be the wizard. Critical Role Campaign 2 had a wizard in it that dressed and looked like all of the wizards that I always play. And I'm invested. It matters. I care. So in this one, these were the rules that everybody was building under. We're going to use point buy because nothing sucks more than having somebody roll really low and just have to eat shit. So I have seen up to that point in season 3 with Poppy and them. I am so unbelievably behind. Planning Roll for Wishes takes months of effort, not just for our stream, but for like getting everything organized for all the other streams that go live with it. There's a lot of work to do, and we've been out to a handful of cons, running a bunch of community events. I'm in Calgary, and I run the Calgary D&D group. We've got 2,000-3,000 folks. So we do community events, go sit down, play some D&D, teach kids and parents how to play D&D, run special events where kids can just show up and be who they are without getting crap from adults, kind of thing. We put on a big LARP event out in Okotoks here earlier this year, just trying to promote stuff. So I am drastically behind on consuming any kind of media. It's all backlogged. So I'm looking forward to it. Campaign 3 has been a little hard for me to get into compared to Campaign 2, but we'll get there. It'll be a good time. I bought Baldur's Gate 3 when it came out, and I haven't sat down to play it yet. I'm gonna wait until December when this is done. So this is all reasonably wrapped up. I have to go through and do the raffles still for this, so grab all of our donation stuff. The fundraiser is still live, so I'm waiting the next couple of days for it to finish off before I grab everybody's emails and roll and call. I'll probably do it on stream just so everything is on the up and up. I mean, I don't have that many donations to give away, but make sure that we call out a list and stuff. So, but yeah, for build, 5e has kind of gone the route of getting a feat with your backgrounds. Yeah, that's the same sort of thing. So when we do stuff for Make-A-Wish, we were at FallCon here in Calgary, and I had 12 or 16 D&D events that we ran, and a Reaper Miniatures table. We had like 220 people come through the Reaper stuff, and 80 or 100 people coming through all of our D&D tables. D&D is not the only thing we were playing, but I'll message you on Discord as well, because depending on what you're doing with Extra Life, if you are planning to do stuff around Alberta, let me know, because we got a pretty sizable crew of about 30 players or so, and the majority of them are local. So depending on what you're looking to do or what you need, probably lend you a hand and help you out. So Extra Life is just it's just good shit. Living okay, yeah, I understand. We tried to do our level best not to poop on the Americans too terribly much, because we had 3 of them on stream with us. So, but still, it doesn't matter. We between America or Canada, we'll figure it out. So, for the builds, I gave them all an extra feat, or the option to take something from Strixhaven or any of the newer books. And I want a mechanically balanced party, so nobody has the, hey, I chose to play a champion fighter and somebody else chose to be a battle master, and one is having fun and the other is not. So everybody starts on a level playing field. Point by, if you're taking a background that has bonus spell selection, like the Ravnica backgrounds, you don't get a bonus feat. If you weren't, then you get a bonus feat. Average hit points for everything rather than rolling, because a lot of these fights get really, really swingy. So I didn't want to have somebody be like, oh, look, I have 6 hit points and we're level 5 kind of thing, because it's a thing. Attunement is a little weird with how we do these, because normally attunement rules are, sit down, get to know it by at dinner, have a nice candlelit dinner for you and your sword, kind of thing. Attunement needs to be instant in a game like this, where things are just appearing in their hands. And if they're switching things out, like, I'm putting this away and I want to pull this other item out that I got donated, I don't want to make the audience feel bad that the thing that they need they can't get to because of the rules. So we say that if you need to reattune to something that you already have, it's a bonus action to do so. To like swap it out and it's in your hands. Through the power of friendship and make a wish, you can attune immediately. Short rest and long rests activated by the milestones take a player's action to activate. Because again, that's a mechanically powerful thing to jump to. Those dice pools are proving to be a really welcome mechanic, and I might look at doing something like that for a regular stream. But I don't want to. I might tie it in with the whole Twitch accumulating fake. They're not bits. They're the things that are a part of chat for watching chat, where if you exchange 500 of them, you can get somebody to drink a glass of water. You exchange so many of them, you get a D6 in the dice pool or whatever. That seems like a reasonable way to go for stuff. So might do that coming forward, but that's been a welcome addition, and it can really scale up the game into a cinematic feel without just TPKing your players something fierce. We'd actually talked about that a little bit. The first thing that they said when I said you're going to be level 5 and this is going to be really hard is, so what do we do when we all die? Or is there like a donation? Do we have backup characters? Like, what are we doing? And it's like, no backup characters. Plan for that. Somebody needs to be able to heal. Somebody needs Revivify. Play smart. I will not purposely like just murder you. These are going to be challenging. You're gonna have to think about what you're doing. And it worked out pretty good. Chris was optimized. Scarlett's character was optimized. Yeah, channel points. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. We don't really use them because we just like a week ago jumped onto Twitch. We were exclusively streaming on YouTube, but actual play stuff on YouTube doesn't really see a lot of people most of the time. especially with a channel our size, right? Most of our interactions with our folks are in person. It's an interesting sort of concept because you get channels out there that have 2,000-3,000 subscribers, and maybe a dozen of them tune in regularly. Whereas the majority of the folks that are subbed to our YouTube are people that I met face to face, either at conventions or through doing chat interactions and stuff like that. So even though it's small, the community still really shows up for this kind of stuff, which I appreciate the heck out of. We had like 70 or 80 folks. Yeah. So being a low level, having the ability to heal ranged with a Dreams Druid really comes in clutch because, he didn't have access to Misty Step or anything like that. His bonus action was largely going to be free. There we go. The most of the interactions that we have on these are actually trolls coming into chat and donating to charity to kill the players. Last year, I'm going to say at least $1,500 of the donations that we got last year were people being like, no, more damage. All of the DM's rolls for the next 5 minutes are crits, right? Yeah. Even bigger channels. It was kind of cool. So Pointy Hat came on like very last minute, like the day before we streamed, and he's got a huge following on YouTube for his lives, and we got him set up for here's how your donations work, and here's where people can go to interact and stuff. And something like what we were doing just doesn't work for that scale because he's got like 200,000 people that are trying to chat all at the same time. And he ended up raising, I want to say $6,000 in like 3-4 hours. But that's reach for you, right? It's the reason that we do the fundraiser not just with individual channels, but try and make sure that everybody can contribute in their own way, doing their own kind of content. Marathon D&D games aren't for everybody, A lot of folks they don't even like D&D. They want to do VTM or Blades in the Dark or something. And do it. Go for it. We will help facilitate it and for good effect. But yeah. One of the big hiccups that we had too was familiarity with Roll20. I've been using Roll20 since it came out for quite a while. We use it for all of our streams. I use a 4-arc episode for most of our games. So we'll sit down and we're going to play Tales from the Loop. And we'll lay it out in Discord and say, this is going to be a 3-episode game. Here is the tone. Here are the kind of characters that I'd like to see built. One of you should be good at X. One of you should be good at Y. Let's have a session 0 and go. If this is interesting to you, come and apply. And from our pool of players, folks come up with some really cool stuff. And Roll20 is really well suited to that. If I was going to do a 150 episode continuous campaign with the same 4 players over and over and over again, I'd probably use Foundry, because I can just build and build and build, and I can script in some really cool mechanical things that APIs and Roll20 don't really jive well together. There's some interesting stuff you can do, but Foundry gives you access to the base code, for lack of a better term, to make it do what you want. And if we weren't doing this kind of Dimension 20 short arc or arc storytelling, I'd probably go in that direction. But aside from Chris and Sarah, I think Lydia and Scarlett probably had the least amount of experience with Roll20. So just moving stuff along and trying to be educational too, because again, Roll20 ambassadorship, trying to help get folks familiar with it, explaining what we're doing as we go is a big part of what we do. So Mm. Yeah, and as for like spell components and you know, what do you have in your hands? Do you need to juggle? Do you need to put one down, do a thing, and then pick it back up again? We brush over all of that for these kinds of things. Um, Most of the time, even in regular games, if narrating that you're doing a thing to get around the rules that shouldn't probably be that restrictive to begin with, we'll say, is this gonna mechanically give you a big advantage over not being able to do it that way? Is this a gotcha in the rules that you're taking advantage of, or do you just not want to have to say that you put your knife down and then you cast a spell and then you pick your knife up again? Um, if all of your problems can be solved by tying your knife to your wrist, we can just kind of hand wave it a little bit. It's one of those things. And yeah, especially with Pathfinder, like uh, I played primarily in Foundry for Pathfinder First Edition, well, just Pathfinder. Um, but the same applies for PF2. There, it's significantly more robust. It ports in a lot of like, I like to steal from other games, um, and I like the ability to not be, when you build a game in Roll20, it's like, what system are you using? Cool, you have access to all of these things for the system natively, that you have in your compendium. But with Foundry, I can be like, I want to grab these rules from like the Star Trek role playing game or from like riffs over here and pull it in so I have reference material without having to dick around with PDFs and stuff. It does that really well. And there's a lot of really cool builders out there that are building plugins like enhanced critical hit mechanics and things like that. We play with that on our lunch hour game at work, and it's just kind of cool. And if you're building a fleshed out story or world building, Foundry is great for that kind of stuff. But with us, every game having a 3 to 4 second lifespan, aside from our regular 5e isekai Nailor game, um, that doesn't really come up terribly often. So, but yeah, that was the basic gist of what we ended up putting together for it. Lay out a timeline, set a timer for everything. I know that from we only have 9 hours to play, and we got to take breaks and stuff in between. So I'll say, cool. By the at what point do they need to have defeated the Scarecrow and move on by this time? I set a timer on my stream deck, and we go from there. Cool. We'll take a break. By what time do they need to have finished the lake to stay on track? And they had gone well over, so you have to adjust on the fly. We skip this chasm entirely. I still need the themes. I move stuff into the throne room and just kind of like, I take out non-cinematic bad guys in place of the recognizable ones. Chris pulling out a boatload of animals all at once was a little interesting, I have to say. Mm, yeah. Uh, People, what a bunch of bastards. It's always a good time. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what went into it. I am definitely looking forward to not having to sit down and just work on stuff for a little while. Thank you for the follow, Math Guy Dave. I appreciate it. Um, the the response to everything that we did community wise was really good, and I think we might try and do something again depending on everybody's schedules. Everybody's busy. 3/4 of us are parents. Like it's a thing. But I'm definitely gonna try and get everybody together again and do something else, whether it's for Make a Wish or Extra Life or Child's Play. The folks from Child's Play I really need to follow up with because they were super super cool and really interested in working on stuff. So, yeah, that by and large, what did I miss? Oh, you know what? Pumpkin King. So they were really surprised about Jack, thinking that it was the Nightmare Before Christmas, and that you could be forgiven for thinking so, but all of that is from like 1902, 1903 Wizard of Oz. Um, it actually lays out in the map of Oz that this is where Jack Pumpkinhead is, just over here in the country of Winky, before it was affectionately borrowed by Tim Burton. So what I ended up doing is I was thinking, here ruffles are, but this is perfect. Thank you, Dave. I will jump into that once we're all done on stream tonight. And again, I'll are you Math Guy Dave on the Treant Monk Discord as well? If so, I'll message you over there, and we'll sort through, and beautiful. I like it. Again, I was looking at something that needed the ability to jump. I wanted this to be suitably terrifying. So what I ended up coming up with for the Emerald King was this like jump around. I think this is actually the Pumpkin King is what it ended up being from Tome of Beasts. So this is where I started with it. Was this feller right here, Lord of the Harvest, like a big huge fae, vulnerability to fire, all cold iron shenanigans, all that jazz. And what I ended up putting in is something similar to Harengon's bonus action Rabbit Hop. Spells didn't really come out terribly much. I was going to use Spike Growth, but then Chris used Spike Growth, and I didn't want to overshadow anything. He never got a chance to use Blight. It just the things didn't really line up, and he had already trapped the monk in, and hitting something with Blight when they're at 1 hit point didn't seem like a good time. The whole point around this fella is that when you're hit, you're grappled, and I really liked that as a thematic thing for the Scarecrow. Same with combining with that pumpkin head on the back to it removed the vulnerability from fire and made him resistant to fire instead, while it was on his person. Likewise, anytime one of his minions hit something, he regained hit points. And these little guys were not terribly strong. Woodwards are all CR1s. They do a D4 plus 1 bludgeoning when they hit, get 2 slams. But, you nickel and dime, that's 6 or 7 hit points every time that they hit, that it's going to heal somebody up. So, yeah, no, I needed something that was going to be interesting, that I could drag enemies around the battlefield a little bit and force them to deal with the consequences of not having dark vision. For the first time ever, we had a party that couldn't see anything. Only the Tabaxi had dark vision. Everybody else was just like, aside from Chris having this giant bright lantern. So when we turn that off, why are you still green? That's a little weird. Light color, nothing. Total light, nothing. There we go. Total light, nothing. There we are. Chris should emit no light as a human being. So when they come out, they're basically dealing with this, and I wanted them to have to deal with navigating the dark. And they're standing here, and they can only see so much based on the glow of these bodies that are around them, or fireflies or something like that. So always bring a rope and a light is the rule of thumb. So this is what the original map had panned out as, and it was a little bit more visible. I think it looked better with that sickly green covering everything, but yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how you put together a 9-hour on the rails sort of deal. Dave, thank you for sticking around and chatting for a little bit. Probably gonna call it and maybe play some Stardew Valley for a little bit, but Thank you for everybody that participated in chat and hung out for a little while. And I think we'll call it and have a good one. You guys have a good